The ceremonial gown weighs heavier than chains. Ceres stands before the altar in the great hall of Thornwick Keep, white silk pooling at her feet like spilled milk, like surrender, like death dressed up as celebration. 300 wolves fill the torchlit chamber, their eyes gleaming in the firelight as they wait for the binding ritual to begin. Her hands won't stop trembling. Across from her, Vorn grins with teeth too sharp and eyes too hungry. The alpha of the Ashbourne pack is twice her age, with a face carved from cruelty, and hands that have already left bruises on her arms from their brief encounters. He's been promised an Omega bride to seal the alliance between packs, and Ceres is that promise, a gift wrapped in white, a sacrifice dressed as a wedding. The elder raises his ceremonial blade, moonstone glinting at its hilt. By the ancient rites we bind these wolves in eternal union. Let the blood seal what words declare. Ceres's wolf howls inside her chest, clawing, desperate. Run, run, run. The elder reaches for her wrist. She bolts. The white gown tears as she rips away from the altar, her bare feet slapping against cold stone as she races toward the massive oak doors. Behind her, gasps erupt like thunder. Vorn's roar of fury shakes dust from the rafters. Seize her! Guards lunge from the shadows. Ceres dodges one, spins past another, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she can barely breathe. The doors are 20 feet away, 15, 10. Freedom is so close she can taste it. Then the doors explode inward. The force of it sends her stumbling backward, her torn gown tangling around her legs. A figure fills the doorway, backlit by moonlight, so massive and radiating such overwhelming power that her wolf drops flat in instant submission. Every torch in the hall gutters as if the flames themselves are bowing. Ceres freezes. The guards freeze. Even Vorn, mid-stride with murder in his eyes, goes perfectly still. The figure steps forward into the light, and Ceres's breath dies in her throat. She's never seen him before, but she knows him instantly. Everyone knows him. His face is carved from shadow and sharp angles, dark hair swept back from a brow that speaks of crowns and conquest. His eyes burn amber, ancient and terrible, scanning the chaos of the hall before landing on her with the weight of a killing blow. The Alpha King, Kaelin Ravencrest, ruler of the Northern Dominion, conqueror of 12 territories, the wolf who built an empire on the bones of those who defied him. His gaze travels slowly down her body, taking in the torn white gown, her heaving chest, her bare feet planted mid-flight. When his eyes return to hers, something dangerous flickers in their depths. "Where do you think you're going in white?" His voice is a low growl that reverberates through her bones. The entire hall holds its breath. Ceres opens her mouth, but no sound comes out. Her wolf is whimpering, pressing low, caught between the desperate urge to flee and the primal command to submit to the most powerful alpha she's ever encountered. Vorn recovers first, striding forward with a forced smile. "Alpha King, an unexpected honor. As you can see, we're in the middle of a binding ceremony. My bride simply has pre-ritual nerves." The Alpha King doesn't look at him. His burning gaze remains locked on Ceres, reading something in her face that makes his jaw tighten. "Your bride," he repeats softly, "is running from your altar in a torn dress with terror in her eyes." His head tilts slightly. Strange nerves indeed. "A misunderstanding," Vorn insists, reaching for Ceres's arm. "Come, Omega, we'll finish what we..." "Touch her." The Alpha King's voice drops to something subterranean, something that makes the torches flicker and the wolves in the hall bare their throats. "And you'll lose the hand." Vorn's fingers stop an inch from Ceres's skin. In the ringing silence, Saris meets the Alpha King's eyes for a single heartbeat before remembering herself and dropping her gaze to the floor. Her pulse raced wildly. What does he want? Why did he stop this? She doesn't know. But for the first time since she was dragged to Thornwick Keep in chains, something other than despair flickers in her chest. 6 days earlier. The cage smells of rust and hopelessness. Saris presses her forehead against the cold iron bars, watching the forest blur past as the prison wagon rattles down the mountain road. Somewhere behind her, other captives whimper quietly, their wolves broken by weeks of starvation and brutality. She should be broken too. Her pack is gone. The Silverbrook wolves, with their gentle ways and healing traditions, slaughtered in a single night by raiders who wanted their territory and didn't care about the lives standing in the way. Saris had hidden in the root cellar while her mother's screams echoed above, while the scent of blood seeped through the floorboards, while everything she loved burned to ash. They found her 3 days later, half dead from grief and hunger. The raiders laughed when they pulled her from the cellar. A healer Omega, skinny and plain, worth almost nothing on the slave market. But then Vorn came. The Alpha of Ashbourne wasn't looking for a slave. He was looking for a political tool, an Omega from a neutral pack, to cement his alliance with the Eastern Territories. Saris's bloodline was old enough to satisfy the traditionalists, and her healing abilities made her valuable breeding stock. Breeding stock. The words still make her stomach turn. Omega. The guard's voice is sharp. We're approaching Thornwick. Make yourself presentable. Presentable. As if she isn't covered in dirt and bruises, her hair matted, her dress torn. As if she's a guest rather than a prisoner. She doesn't respond. There's no point. Thornwick Keep rises from the mountains like a clenched fist, all black stone and sharp edges. Vorn's seat of power. Her prison for the rest of her shortened life, because she knows with bone-deep certainty that she won't survive long as his mate. His reputation precedes him, whispered stories of previous wives who died from accidents, of servants who disappeared for displeasing him, of an entire pack ruled through fear. The cage door opens with a screech. Welcome home, bride. Vorn's voice slithers through the opening, and Saris forces herself not to flinch as he grabs her arm and yanks her out. His grip is bruising, deliberate. You'll learn to smile when you see me, one way or another. The next 6 days blur together. She's scrubbed raw by silent servants, dressed in increasingly fine clothes, and paraded before Vorn's allies like a prize mare. Her healing abilities are tested and measured, her bloodline verified by dusty scholars, her fertility assessed by cold-eyed physicians. Through it all, Saris retreats deep inside herself, building walls around her heart, preparing for the inevitable end. Then comes the wedding day. And then comes him. Now, standing in the great hall with the Alpha King's presence filling every corner, Saris realizes the ceremony has ground to a complete halt. Wolves whisper frantically behind their hands. Vorn's face cycles through emotions, settling on something oily and political. Alpha King, he says smoothly, surely you didn't travel 3 days to interrupt a simple binding ritual. What brings you to my territory? Your territory exists because I allow it. The Alpha King still hasn't looked away from Saris. I came for the alliance negotiations, but I find myself curious about this ceremony. There's nothing to be curious about. The Omega was purchased legally from... Purchased. The word hangs in the air like smoke. So she's not a willing bride. Willing? Vorn laughs, but it sounds forced. Since when do Omegas need to be willing? She's property. A very expensive property that belongs to me. Something shifts in the Alpha King's expression. Something cold and calculating. How expensive? The hall goes utterly silent. Vorn blinks. What? You said she's expensive property. The Alpha King reaches into his cloak and produces a leather pouch that clinks heavily with coin. I'm asking how much? She's not for sale. The Alliance will proceed regardless. I'll personally guarantee it. The Alpha King tosses the pouch at Vorn's feet. 500 gold. That's 10 times what you paid for her? Saris's knees nearly buckle. 500 gold? For her? Vorn's face purples with rage, but she can see the calculation in his eyes. 500 gold is a fortune. More than enough to buy 10 Omegas, to fund a small army, to expand his territory. 700, he says finally, his voice tight. Done. The word falls like a headsman's axe. Final. Absolute. Vorn stares at the Alpha King, then at Saris, then back again. Why? He demands. Why would you pay a king's ransom for a worthless Omega? The Alpha King doesn't answer. Instead, he turns to the massive warrior who entered behind him, a scarred giant with eyes like winter ice. Brannock, take her to my convoy. See that she's fed and given clean clothes. The warrior nods and approaches Saris with surprising gentleness. Come with me, girl. Wait. Saris finds her voice, cracked and rusty from disuse. My lord, I don't understand. Why would you? You don't speak to the Alpha King unless addressed. Brannock's voice is quiet but firm. Rule 1. Remember it. He leads her toward the shattered doors, his massive body shielding her from the hungry stares of the hall. As they pass the threshold, Saris can't help but glance back. The Alpha King stands motionless, watching her leave with an expression she can't read. Why? The question burns in her chest. Why save me? She doesn't know. But as the cold night air hits her face and the stars wheel overhead, she realizes she's breathing freely for the first time in months. Whatever comes next, at least she escaped Vorn's altar. At least she's still alive. The journey north takes 4 days. Saris rides in an enclosed carriage rather than a cage, a luxury so foreign it makes her skin itch. Through the window, she watches the landscape transform from Thornwick's jagged peaks to rolling forests, then to the vast frozen tundra of the Northern Dominion, the Alpha King's territory. She catches glimpses of him sometimes, riding at the head of the convoy on a massive black destrier. He never looks back at her carriage, never acknowledges her existence. It's as if the wolf who paid 700 gold for her has already forgotten the purchase. Maybe he has, she thinks bitterly. Maybe I'm just another acquisition, another piece of property to add to his collection. But that doesn't explain the burning intensity in his eyes when he'd looked at her. That doesn't explain the cold fury in his voice when he'd threatened Vorn. On the second night, she wakes to shouting. Saris peers through the carriage window to see warriors gathered around a fallen figure. Someone is hurt, their leg twisted at a wrong angle, blood darkening the snow beneath them. Her wolf surges forward before she can stop it. Healer. The instinct is bone deep, inherited from generations of Silverbrook wolves. Someone is hurt. Help them. She's out of the carriage before she consciously decides to move, her bare feet sinking into the freezing snow as she rushes toward the injured warrior. The men turn to stare at her with expressions ranging from confusion to hostility. What's the Omega doing out of the carriage? Someone demands. Get back inside, another snarls. This doesn't concern you. But Saris has already seen the wound. The warrior, barely more than a boy, has a compound fracture, bone jutting through skin. Without treatment, infection will set in within hours. He could lose the leg. He could die. I can help, she says, dropping to her knees beside him. I'm a healer, please. Let me. Rough hands grab her shoulders, yanking her backward. Healers. The warrior who grabbed her spits the word like a curse. We don't need your weak magic here. Northern wolves are strong. We heal ourselves, or we die trying. But he'll die if... Then he dies with honor. The warrior shoves her toward the carriage. Get back inside, Omega, and stay there. Sarah stumbles, her palm scraping against frozen ground. Tears of frustration burn her eyes as she watches them lift the injured boy, his screams echoing through the forest as they jostle his broken leg. I could save him. I could help. But no one wants her help. She climbs back into the carriage, shivering, and doesn't sleep for the rest of the night. The boy's screams echo in her dreams. Ravencrest Citadel emerges from the mountains like a frozen crown. The fortress is carved directly into the stone, towers stretching toward a sky heavy with snow clouds. Everything is black and white and gray, sharp edges and harsh angles, a kingdom built to survive the brutal northern winters. As the convoy passes through the massive gates, Sarah sees wolves everywhere, training in the courtyards, sparring on the ramparts, moving with military precision through the corridors. Even the children carry wooden swords, their small faces set in fierce scowls. No one smiles. No one laughs. What kind of place is this? The carriage stops before the main keep, and Brannock opens the door with his usual stoic expression. Follow me. You'll be assigned quarters in the servants' wing. Servants' wing? Saris follows him into the shadowed corridors. I don't understand. The Alpha King paid 700 gold for me. If I'm not a servant, then what am I? Brannock doesn't answer immediately. They climb spiral stairs, pass through echoing halls, and descend into the depths of the citadel. Finally, he stops before a small but clean chamber with a narrow bed and a tiny window. You're whatever the Alpha King decides you are, he says. Until then, you're fed, sheltered, and safe. That's more than most can say. But why? Why would he? Rule 1, Brannock interrupts firmly. Don't ask questions about the Alpha King's motives. Rule 2, don't look him in the eyes. Rule 3, don't speak to him unless spoken to. Break these rules, and even I can't protect you from the consequences. He turns to leave, then pauses. The boy from last night. Fenwick. His voice softens slightly. He died an hour ago. Fever took him. Saris's heart cracks. I could have saved him. Maybe. Brannock's scarred face is unreadable, but that's not our way. Here, weakness is death. Remember that. The door closes behind him, leaving Saris alone in the cold chamber. She sinks onto the narrow bed, her body shaking with suppressed sobs. The boy died. Fenwick died because no one would let her help. Because healing is weakness. Because this frozen kingdom values suffering over survival. What have I traded one prison for another? Through the tiny window she can see the Alpha King crossing the courtyard below, his dark cloak snapping in the wind. Warriors bow as he passes, their faces tight, with fear and respect. He looks up suddenly, as if sensing her gaze. Their eyes meet for a single heartbeat before Saris jerks away from the window, her heart racing. What does he want from me? The question haunts her into restless sleep. 2 weeks pass in the citadel, and Saris learns to survive. She scrubs floors, tends fires, washes linens. The work is hard but honest, and no one raises a hand to her, a mercy she'd almost forgotten existed. The other servants are distant but not unkind, too focused on their own survival to bother with the strange Omega the Alpha King brought home. But watching the suffering around her is its own kind of torture. Every day, warriors limp through the corridors with wounds that could be healed in minutes. A kitchen maid burns her hand and bites through her lip rather than admit the pain. A young guard develops a festering cut that spreads angry red tendrils up his arm, and when Saris offers to help, he looks at her like she suggested he sprout wings. Healing is for the weak. He says coldly. I'd rather die than accept Omega magic. He nearly does. She hears later that he lost the arm. The waste of it makes her want to scream. All this needless suffering, all this pain that she could ease if they would just let her. But every time she offers, she's met with the same contemptuous refusal. Weak, soft, Omega magic. She begins to understand why the Alpha King bought her and then forgot her. In this world, her abilities aren't valuable, they're shameful. Her chance to speak to him comes unexpectedly. She's carrying linens through the Great Hall when the Alpha King enters with his advisors, discussing border disputes and patrol rotations. His voice carries the cold authority she's come to associate with him, but up close, she can see the exhaustion etched around his eyes. He looks tired, she thinks before she can stop herself. Tired and alone. The realization makes her bold. She steps forward, clutching her linens like armor. My lord. The conversation stops. Every eye in the hall turns to her, expressions ranging from shock to outrage. My lord, she presses on, her voice trembling but determined. I wanted to ask about my purpose here. You paid 700 gold for me, but no one will let me heal. I don't understand what you want from... How dare you? A silver-haired advisor steps forward, his face purple with indignation. A servant does not address the Alpha King directly. You forget your place, Omega. But I'm not just a servant, I'm a healer. My abilities? Your abilities are worthless here. The advisor's voice drips contempt. We are northern wolves. We don't coddle weakness with magic tricks. It's not coddling, it's... Enough. The Alpha King's voice cuts through the argument like a blade. Ceres's mouth snaps shut. He looks at her, finally, fully. His amber eyes are cold, distant, as impenetrable as frozen stone. You were purchased to satisfy a curiosity. That curiosity is satisfied. Return to your... duties. The dismissal hits like a physical blow. Ceres opens her mouth to protest, to argue, to demand an explanation, but Brannock appears at her elbow, his grip firm on her arm. Come, he murmurs, before you make it worse. He pulls her from the hall as her cheeks burn with humiliation. Behind her, she hears the advisor's mocking laughter, the Alpha King's voice resuming its cold discussion of borders and battles. A curiosity. The word echoes in her skull. That's all I am. A curiosity. 3 days later, everything changes. Ceres is sweeping the training courtyard when the scream shatters the morning air. A young girl, no more than 10, has fallen from the climbing wall during drills. Her body lies crumpled on the stone, her leg bent completely wrong, bone gleaming white through torn flesh. Blood pools beneath her, spreading too fast. The training master strides over, his face expressionless. Get up. The girl tries. She can't. Her scream dissolves into broken sobs. Pathetic. The master grabs her shattered leg and twists. The crack of bone makes Ceres's stomach heave. This is what happens to weak wolves. You want to cry? Cry louder. Let everyone hear your shame. Please. The girl whimpers. Please, it hurts. Pain makes us strong. He twists again. Say it. Something inside Ceres ignites. She doesn't remember crossing the courtyard. She doesn't remember shoving the training master aside. She only knows that suddenly she's kneeling beside the girl, her hands already glowing with warm, golden light as healing energy flows from her palms. What are you doing? The training master's roar barely registers. Stop! You'll corrupt her! But Ceres can't stop. Won't stop. The girl's leg is so badly damaged, the bone shattered in 3 places, infection already setting in from the dirt ground into the wound. Without healing, she'll lose the leg. She'll probably die. Not this one. Not today. The golden light intensifies, flowing into broken bone, knitting torn muscle, purging poison from blood. The girl's screams fade to whimpers, then to confused silence as pain gives way to warmth. When Saris finally sits back, exhausted, the leg is whole. Perfect. Not even a scar. The courtyard is utterly silent. Saris looks up to find dozens of warriors staring at her with expressions of shock, disgust, and something else she can't name. The training master's face is purple with rage. "You!" he snarls, reaching for his sword. "You've corrupted her. You've stolen her trial. The penalty for interfering with training is..." "Is what?" The voice comes from above. Saris's head snaps up. The Alpha King stands on the balcony overlooking the courtyard, his dark figure silhouetted against the gray sky. His face is unreadable, but his amber eyes burn as they take in the scene. The healed girl, the glowing Omega, the furious training master. "My king." The training master bows hastily. This Omega interfered with sacred training. She used her magic to heal the girl before she could prove her strength through suffering. The ancient law demands. The girl is healed? Yes, but then she can resume training immediately. The Alpha King's voice carries no emotion. An injured wolf serves no purpose. A healthy wolf can fight. The training master gapes. "My king, our traditions, are mine to interpret." Cold finality rings in every word. The Omega acted. The girl is whole. The matter is closed. He turns and disappears into the citadel without another word. Saris stays frozen on her knees, her heart racing. Around her, warriors mutter and stare, but no one moves to punish her. The training master's hands clench and unclench, but he doesn't reach for his sword again. Then she catches movement on the balcony. The Alpha King has paused just inside the doorway, looking back at her over his shoulder. Their eyes meet for one electric heartbeat, and in that moment, she sees something that makes her breath catch. He's not angry. He's proud. The realization crashes through her like a wave. He wanted her to heal the girl. He wanted to see what she could do. Wanted proof that her abilities were real. That's why he bought her. That's why he's kept her here. He was waiting for this moment. Before she can process what that means, a shadow falls over her. Omega. The voice is honey-sweet and poison-sharp. Saris looks up to find a tall man with silver hair and pale eyes studying her with undisguised hatred. His resemblance to the Alpha King is striking, but where the king's face holds cold control, this man's features twist with barely contained malice. That was quite a display. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mordrek, the king's uncle and chief advisor. I've been curious about you." Saris rises slowly, her instincts screaming warnings. "My lord." "You have a dangerous gift, little Omega." He leans closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. "Healing makes wolves soft. Softness destroys kingdoms. My nephew may indulge his curiosity, but I have no such weakness." His pale eyes bore into hers. "Watch your step in this citadel. Accidents happen to careless servants. Frequently." He straightens and strides away, leaving Saris trembling in the courtyard. Above her, clouds gather over the frozen mountains. A storm is coming. The summons comes at midnight. Saris jolts awake to find Brannock standing in her doorway, his scarred face illuminated by a single candle. "The Alpha King wants to see you. Now." Her pulse thundered in her ears as she follows him through the sleeping citadel. The corridors are empty, torch sconces casting dancing shadows on ancient stone. Every step echoes like a drumbeat counting down to some unknown fate. "He's going to punish me," she thinks. The training master complained. Mordrek convinced him I'm a threat. But when Brannock stops before a set of ornate double doors and knocks twice, the voice that calls "Enter" holds no anger. The Alpha King's private chambers steal her breath. A fire roars in a hearth large enough to roast a stag, casting warm light across rich tapestries and thick fur rugs. The room is unexpectedly comfortable, a sanctuary hidden within the fortress's harsh exterior. And standing before the flames, his back to her, is Kalen Ravencrest. He's shed his formal armor for simple dark clothing that somehow makes him more intimidating, not less. The firelight traces the broad line of his shoulders, the powerful column of his neck. "Leave us," he says without turning. Brannock bows and retreats, the doors closing with a soft click. They're alone. Saris keeps her eyes fixed on the floor, hyper-aware of every breath, every heartbeat. The silence stretches until she can't bear it. "My lord, if this is about the training yard, You saved her life." The words stop her cold. She risks a glance upward and finds him watching her, his amber eyes reflecting the firelight like molten gold. "The girl," he continues, "Lysara. The physician examined her afterward. The bone was shattered in 3 places. Without your healing, she would have died within hours." He pauses. "You knew that?" "Yes, my lord." "And you acted anyway, despite knowing our traditions forbid it." Saris lifts her chin, something defiant sparking in her chest. "I couldn't watch her die. Not when I could help. Even though it could have meant your death?" Even then. Something shifts in his expression. The cold mask cracks, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath. Tired, conflicted, carrying burdens she can only imagine. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a chair by the fire. "Please." The courtesy startles her more than a command would have. She sits carefully, her torn servant's dress suddenly feeling inadequate in these fine surroundings. The Alpha King takes the chair across from her, close enough that she can see the faint scars on his hands, the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. Up close, he looks younger than she expected. And older. As if he's lived several lifetimes in one. "I owe you an explanation," he says quietly, "for why I bought you, for why I've kept you here." "My lord." "Kalen." His voice softens. "When we're alone, you may call me Kalen." The intimacy of it makes her cheeks warm. Kalen, you don't owe me anything. I owe you the truth." He stares into the fire, and when he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of old grief. 20 years ago, my pack was destroyed. The Ravencrest wolves were different then. We believed in compassion, in mercy, in healing the wounded rather than letting them suffer. My mother was a healer, like you." Saris's breath catches. "What happened?" "We were attacked by wolves who saw our kindness as weakness." His jaw tightens. "They slaughtered everyone. My parents, my siblings, the elders who taught me to read, the children I played with in the snow. I was 12 years old, hiding in a cellar while my world burned." The parallel to her own story strikes like lightning. The cellar, the screams, the smell of blood. "My uncle found me," Kalen continues, "Mordrek and a handful of survivors. They saved my life, raised me, and taught me that the only way to prevent another massacre was to become stronger than our enemies, to purge all weakness, all softness, all mercy." "And healing," Saris whispers, "healing became weakness. The greatest weakness of all." His eyes meet hers, burning with something raw and painful. "For 20 years, I've believed that. I've built this kingdom on that belief. Wolves who can't heal themselves don't deserve to survive. But you bought me anyway. I bought you because..." He stops, struggling for words. When I saw you running from that altar, something in me recognized something in you. The same desperation, the same refusal to accept a fate you didn't choose. His hand reaches toward her, then pulls back. I told myself it was curiosity, but watching you heal that girl today, watching you risk everything to save a life, I think I bought you because part of me has always known our way is wrong. The confession hangs in the air between them, fragile and precious. You could change it, Sarah says softly. You're the Alpha King. I could tear this kingdom apart. His voice hardens. Mordred has supporters everywhere. Half my advisors believe suffering is sacred. If I suddenly embrace healing, they'll see it as weakness. They'll challenge my rule, and the chaos that follows will kill more wolves than any tradition. So what do? The word we slips out before she can stop it. Kaylin's eyes flare with something she can't name. For now, we compromise. He leans forward, his presence overwhelming. You may heal in emergencies only, when a life hangs in the balance and natural recovery would mean death. That gives me grounds to defend you without appearing soft. And the rest of the time? The rest of the time you survive. His hand finally reaches hers, his fingers warm and calloused against her skin. My uncle is dangerous, Saris. He sees you as a threat to everything he's built. Promise me you'll stay away from him. The touch sends electricity sparking up her arm. I promise. Good. He withdraws his hand, and she immediately misses its warmth. Now go. Rest. I leave at dawn for the eastern border. Raiders have been testing our defenses. I may be gone several weeks. Saris rises, her mind spinning with everything she's learned. At the door, she pauses. Kaylin? He looks up, and the vulnerability in his face makes her heart ache. Your mother, she says softly. Would she be proud of the king you've become? Pain flashes across his features. I don't know. I've tried so hard to be strong that I've forgotten what she would have wanted. Maybe she would have wanted you to be kind. She slips through the door before he can respond, her heart pounding with feelings she doesn't dare name. The Alpha King rides, out at dawn with 300 warriors, leaving the citadel quiet and strange without his commanding presence. In his absence, something unexpected begins. It starts small. A kitchen maid approaches Saris with a burned palm, tears streaming down her face. Please, she whispers, the cook will dismiss me if I can't work. I have children, please. Saris heals her without hesitation. Word spreads through the servants' quarters like wildfire. The Omega will help. The Omega can heal. They come in secret, one by one. A stable hand with a kicked rib. A seamstress with hands cramped from endless needlework. A guard's young daughter burning with fever. Each healing is a risk. Each one could mean her death if Mordred discovers it. But Saris can't turn them away. She won't. And slowly, miraculously, the citadel begins to change. Laughter echoes in corridors that knew only silence. Children play games in the courtyard, their giggles bouncing off stone walls. Servants hum while they work, their movements lighter, their faces brighter. Even some warriors begin to soften. A trainer who once kicked fallen recruits now offers his hand to help them up. A captain known for brutal discipline starts praising effort alongside demanding perfection. The transformation is subtle, but Saris sees it everywhere. Joy seeping through cracks in the fortress's harsh exterior. Hope taking root in frozen ground. What will he think when he returns? The question haunts her nights. Will he see the healing she's brought? Or only the weakness his uncle warned him about? 3 weeks pass. Then 4. Messages arrive occasionally. The campaign goes well. The raiders are retreating. The king will return soon. Saris counts the days like prayers. The horns wake her at midnight. Not the triumphant blare of victory, but the urgent, desperate wail that means emergency. Ceres throws on her cloak and races outside, joining the crowd gathering in the main courtyard. Through the gates ride 5 warriors, their wolves lathered and exhausted. At their center, slumped across his saddle, is the Alpha King. Healer! The lead rider's voice cracks with desperation. Where is the healer? Ceres shoves through the crowd, her chest tight with dread. Here, I'm here. They lift Kalen from his horse and she sees the wound, a jagged gash across his abdomen, blackened at the edges, weeping something that smells wrong. Silver poison, the same corruption she's heard about in whispered horror stories. Assassin's blade, Brannock says grimly, appearing beside her. Coated in moonsbane. His wolf can't heal it, nothing can heal it. I can try. Ceres drops to her knees beside the king, her hands already glowing with golden light. Get him to his chambers, now. They carry him through the citadel, Ceres running alongside with her palm pressed to the wound, fighting the poison spread with everything she has. By the time they reach his chambers, her vision is swimming with exhaustion. Everyone out, she commands, her voice carrying authority she didn't know she possessed. I need silence. I need time. The warriors hesitate, looking to Brannock. You heard her? The scarred giant says quietly. Go. They file out, leaving Ceres alone with the dying king. The healing takes hours. The moonsbane fights her at every turn, burning through her energy like acid through silk. She pours everything she has into him, her strength, her hope, her desperate prayers to whatever gods might listen. Don't die. Please don't die. I just found you. Somewhere around dawn, the poison finally breaks. Kalen's breathing steadies. Color returns to his ashen face. The wound closes, leaving nothing but a faint silver scar. Ceres collapses beside the bed, utterly spent. When she wakes, weak sunlight streams through the windows and a warm hand holds hers. Ceres? Her eyes flutter open. Kalen is awake, propped against his pillows, watching her with an expression that makes her heart stutter. You saved me, he says softly. I couldn't let you die. Her voice cracks. Not you. His thumb traces circles on her palm. I dreamed of you. While the poison burned through me, I heard your voice calling me back. Kalen. I was wrong. The words come rough, torn from somewhere deep. About healing, about weakness, about everything. His amber eyes burn into hers. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and I've been a fool. The door crashes open. Mordred stands in the doorway, his pale eyes taking in the scene, the king in bed, the Omega holding his hand, the obvious intimacy between them. So, he says, his voice silk wrapped around steel. The rumors are true. Our king has been corrupted by Omega magic. Uncle. Kalen's voice hardens. This isn't what? Isn't weakness? Isn't exactly what I warned you about? Mordred stalks into the room, his silver hair gleaming like a blade. She's infected you with her softness. I can see it in your eyes. The kingdom our fathers built. The kingdom I helped you conquer. You'd throw it all away for this. Choose your next word carefully, Kalen growls. Mordred's lips curve into something cruel. This is far from over, nephew. The council will hear of this. Our allies will hear of this. And when they see how far you've fallen, he turns and strides out, his footsteps echoing like a death knell. Ceres trembles. He's going to destroy us. No. Kalen's jaw sets with familiar determination. He'll try, but he won't succeed. His hand tightens on hers. I won't let him. 4 days later, Mordred makes his move. The knock at Ceres's door comes well after midnight, sharp and authoritative. A guard she doesn't recognize stands in the hallway, his expression professionally blank. "The Alpha King requires your presence," he says. Immediately. Something feels wrong. The guard's scent is unfamiliar, his eyes too cold. But Saris has been summoned to Kaelin's chambers before. Maybe he needs her healing again. She follows the guard through sleeping corridors, downstairs she doesn't recognize, into parts of the citadel she's never seen. "Where are we going?" she asks, unease prickling her spine. "This isn't the way to the king's chambers." The guard doesn't answer. They descend deeper, the air growing damp and cold. Stone walls press close, torchlight flickering over ancient iron doors. The dungeons. "Wait." Sarah stops walking. "This is wrong. You need to come with me." The guard's hand clamps down on her arm, his grip bruising. "Now." He drags her into a circular chamber lined with empty cells. More guards wait in the shadows, their faces hidden behind iron helms. And in the center of the room stands Mordrek. "Welcome, little healer." His smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "So good of you to join us." Fear crystallizes in her chest. "The king didn't summon me." "No, he didn't." Mordrek circles her slowly, a predator savoring its prey. "My nephew is indisposed. A sleeping draught in his evening wine, nothing lethal. I'm not a monster." "What do you want?" "I want to save this kingdom." His voice hardens. "You've corrupted the king with your weakness. You've infected my citadel with your healing poison. Wolves who should be strong now depend on Omega magic. Children who should learn through pain now expect mercy. That's not corruption. That's compassion." "Compassion killed my brother." The mask shatters. Mordrek's face twists with decades of rage and grief. "Compassion slaughtered our pack. Compassion left a 12-year-old boy sobbing in a cellar while his mother's screams echoed above." Saris's blood runs cold. "You blame healers for what happened. I blame weakness, and you are weakness incarnate." He draws a dagger from his belt, its blade gleaming with the same oily sheen she recognizes from Kaelin's wound, Moonsbane. "Tonight, you disappear. A tragic accident, a runaway servant who ventured too far into the mountains, and my nephew will learn once again that mercy is death." He lunges. Saris screams, throwing herself sideways. The blade misses her throat by inches. "Hold her!" Mordrek snarls. Guards surge forward, grabbing her arms, forcing her to her knees. The Moonsbane dagger glints in the torchlight as Mordrek raises it above her heart. "Any last words, little healer?" Saris closes her eyes and thinks of amber eyes reflecting firelight, of a warm hand holding hers through the longest night, of a king who dared to believe that kindness might be strength. "I'm sorry, Kaelin. I'm sorry I couldn't." In the corridor above, a loyal servant who'd witnessed Saris being led toward the dungeons had already raced to Brannock with trembling words of warning. The scarred warrior hadn't hesitated. He'd forced a purging tonic down his king's throat and dragged him to consciousness with news that turned Kaelin's blood to fire. The iron doors burst from their hinges. Kaelin tears through the entrance like divine wrath made flesh. His eyes blaze molten amber, his partially shifted form rippling with barely contained power. Behind him, Brannock and a dozen loyal warriors flood the chamber, their swords already drawn. "Let her go." Each word drips with the promise of violence. Mordrek's guards hesitate, exchanging uncertain glances. This wasn't the plan. The king was supposed to be unconscious until dawn. "Nephew." Mordrek's voice stays calm, but Saris can see the calculation in his eyes. "You're making a mistake. This Omega has saved my life, has brought joy to a kingdom that forgot how to smile, has more strength in her little finger than you have in your entire withered soul." Kaelin stalks forward, each step a thunderclap of authority. "Now, Let her go. The guards release her. Saris scrambles backward, her heart pounding. Mordrek's mask finally cracks. You would destroy everything we built? For her? I would burn it all down and start again. Kaelin's voice drops to something deadly quiet. Because what we built was wrong. A kingdom of suffering isn't strength. It's just suffering. And I'm done. Then you leave me no choice. Mordrek moves with speed that belies his age. The moonsbane dagger arcs toward Kaelin's throat. But the king is faster, catching his uncle's wrist and twisting until the blade clatters against stone. What follows is brutal and brief. Mordrek's guards engage Brannock's warriors, steel clashing against steel in the torchlit chamber. Kaelin and his uncle grapple like wolves, their struggle primal and vicious. They crash against walls, overturn tables, leave cracks in the ancient stone floor. But Mordrek has one more weapon. Saris sees the second blade too late, a slim stiletto hidden in his boot, coated with the same deadly poison. It slides between Kaelin's ribs with surgical precision, finding the gap in his defenses like a whisper of death. No! The scream tears from her throat. Kaelin staggers. Blood blooms across his shirt, dark and wrong. But instead of falling, he looks at his uncle with something almost like pity. You could have been different, he says softly. You could have healed instead of hurt. His claws extend with a sound like tearing silk. One strike, clean, final. Mordrek crumples, his pale eyes wide with shock, his heart pierced by the nephew he raised from childhood. Then Kaelin collapses. No, no, no. Saris catches him before he hits the ground, her hands already glowing with desperate golden light. The poison spreads faster this time, his body still weakened from the previous healing. His skin turns gray, his breathing shallow, his heartbeat stuttering beneath her palms. Stay with me, she begs, pouring everything into him. Kaelin, please, stay with me. His eyes flutter open, unfocused. Saris, I'm here, I'm not leaving, but you have to fight. Tired. His voice is barely a whisper. So tired of fighting. Then don't fight. Tears stream down her face. Just hold on to me. She gives him everything, not just her healing energy, but something deeper. Her hope, her joy, her love. The feelings she's been afraid to name flow from her heart into his. Golden light blazing so bright the entire chamber fills with warmth. Come back to me, please. I love you. Come back. The poison breaks. Kaelin gasps, his back arching as life floods back into his body. Color returns to his face. His heartbeat steadies, strong and sure beneath her palms. When his eyes open again, they're clear, present, alive. You saved me, he breathes. Again. I'll save you as many times as it takes. She's crying and laughing at the same time. You impossible, stubborn, wonderful wolf. His hand comes up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. I love you, he says simply. I think I've loved you since the moment I saw you running from that altar in your torn white dress. The bravest, most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I love you too. The words feel like coming home. Even when you were cold and distant and impossibly frustrating. Especially then? Especially then. He pulls her down and kisses her, soft and desperate and full of promises. Around them, the battle has ended. Brannock stands guard over Mordrek's body while loyal warriors secure the chamber. But none of it matters. Nothing matters except this moment, this man, this love that defied everything. Spring comes to Ravencrest Citadel, and with it, transformation. Where once there were only training yards, gardens now bloom with healing herbs, their fragrant leaves catching the mountain breeze. The clash of weapons still echoes through the courtyards, but now it's accompanied by laughter and encouragement. Warriors who once fought to dominate now train to protect, understanding that true strength lies in defending what matters. The healing halls Saris established overflow with patients and apprentices. Young wolves who once would have hidden their injuries now seek treatment openly, knowing that recovery isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The old ways fade slowly, but they fade. Kalen moves through his kingdom like a different man. His power hasn't diminished. If anything, his wolves respect him more than ever. But now his strength is tempered with mercy, his commands softened with compassion. Children no longer cower when he passes. They wave. On the night of the summer solstice, when the sun barely sets and the sky burns with color, the entire pack gathers in the great courtyard. Sarah stands before the altar, wrapped not in sacrificial white, but in a gown of deep silver that shimmers like starlight. Her hair is woven with mountain flowers, her face radiant with joy. Kalen waits for her, his amber eyes soft with love. 6 months ago, he says, his voice carrying to every ear, I bought this woman from an altar where she was meant for another. I told myself it was curiosity, but I know now it was fate. He takes her hands, his grip warm and sure. She came to us as property. She stayed as a healer. And today, she becomes my queen. The pack howls its approval, voices rising toward the endless sky. Under the light of a sun that refuses to set, Kalen marks her as his mate. The gentle bite is a promise, a claiming, a vow that needs no words. Their wolves twine together. His dark as midnight, hers silver as moonlight, two halves of a whole finally complete. I love you, Saris whispers against his lips, my impossible king. I love you, he answers, pulling her closer. My brave healer. The celebration lasts until dawn. Music fills the halls. Children dance between the legs of warriors. Servants and nobles drink side by side, old divisions dissolving in the warmth of shared joy. And in the center of it all, the Alpha King and his queen begin their forever. Together, they will build something new. A kingdom where strength means protection, where healing is honored, where love, not fear, rules. Together, they will prove that mercy isn't weakness. It's the greatest power of all.